In an injury-filled, incredibly different and unique year, we have finally made it to the NBA Finals, and I just want to start out the video talking about how I've had a great time talking this season about the NBA. Recently, I've moved on to a little bit of NFL. I've been a little bit, anxious to get back to football, as it is my favorite sport. But with that said, I am still so excited to talk about this finals matchup. I think that, honestly, I'm extremely, extremely happy with what we have as a matchup this year. I'm really excited to see what happens in the playoffs, and what we've seen so far has been a lot of ups and downs. There have been injury woes. This finals is going to have a bigger asterisk than most finals would have, but that isn't something that we should take away from these players. All players on both the Bucks and the Suns worked extremely hard to get to this point. I want to congratulate every player and just the fans for those fan bases. It's amazing to have your team in a finals. It's amazing to have your team succeed as much as these teams have succeeded this year. And I think that the Suns, they beat all expectations. The Bucks, things were looking pretty grim last year when they lost to the Heat, and the year before. They didn't think Giannis was going to re-sign. They were a little worried. They ended up getting Giannis, Drew Holiday, and things, worked out perfectly. And we'll see if the moves they made can lead them to an NBA championship. And, this is the time for them to shine. But without further ado, I want to talk about the matchup. And first things first, I'm going to talk about the Phoenix Suns. And I know I just mentioned the Bucks and how they have, Chris Middleton, Giannis, Drew Holiday, a ton of good role players. But Giannis is injured. We don't know what we're going to see. I assume that he will play game one of the finals, but even then, he's going to be banged up. This isn't an injury that I think he will be back from 100% for the rest of the year. I think that he's going to be limited for the rest of the playoffs or the rest of, the NBA finals. And it really sucks to see that happen, but with that said, I think that this is going to make for a much more interesting matchup because with a fully healthy Giannis, I would be taking the Bucks as my clear favorites to win, and that has to do with a multitude of things. First off, I want to talk about Chris Paul, and Chris Paul played fantastic. He has been on another level. He's like 36 years old, doing things that he has never done in his career, playing some of the best basketball he's ever played in his career. He's a top 5 point guard in the NBA, leading the Suns team who didn't do much to change their roster. I think that is the most impressive part. They had guys develop, and they didn't add anybody too new to the melting pot. But Chris Paul came in and everything meshed together perfectly, and that has a lot to do with who Chris Paul is in the locker room, and has a lot to do with who he is on the court. And this playoffs, he's been great, but I don't think he's been the offensive god that he has been in the past. His final game against the Clippers showed us that he can still do that, but consistently, and especially with this injury that I do think is still hobbling him just a small amount, I think that it's going to come down to what Chris Paul can do as a scoring threat, because his co-partner Devin Booker has been a little lackluster in these past few playoff games. And if you haven't been watching, you might be a little confused because obviously Devin Booker had a 40-point triple-double without Chris Paul in a win in Game 1 against the Clippers. He is a fantastic player. He is a top 25 player in the NBA, and he has the ability to do that. But you've got to look at his most recent games. Every game after that, he has played a little bit poorly, in my opinion. To throw some stats at you, since his 40-point triple-double, he is averaging 22 points on 35% shooting from the field, 25% from 3. He's also averaging 3 assists, 4 rebounds, and 5 turnovers a game. That's not good. As I said, he's only averaging 3 assists. I don't think his playmaking has been coming into full view of the public and full view of the other team. I think that a lot of it has to do with the fact that there isn't a lot of offense coming from his role players. I know that Cameron Payne has been fantastic, but he's kind of doing that on his own. And Cameron Payne isn't getting a lot of help from Devin Booker. The only player that I see consistently getting passes from Booker is Deandre Ayton, who is a 7'2", incredibly athletic center who does not get the flowers he deserves. But that isn't to take away from Devin Booker. He can go off for a 40-point triple-double any night. He's going to have a ton of rest this next, a ton of rest compared to what he's been getting, as July 6th is the first date of the NBA Finals, and I'm really curious to see what happens with him. But to move on to some of the role players, or not role players, but bigger parts of this NBA Finals, the more intricate parts, I should say, Deandre Ayton. In my opinion, he's the X factor for this team. He has had the quietest yet most impressive playoff series I've seen in a very long time, and definitely one of the most impressive of this year. He is shooting like 60% from the field, averaging a double-double. I think he's averaging like probably near 20 and like 10. He's been crazy good, shooting extremely efficient. And, his defense has been all there. He has been fantastic defensively. He is going to be the reason, he's going to be the make-or-break cog in the machine for the Phoenix Suns. And that has to do with what happens with Giannis. I think Giannis is going to, it's Giannis. He's going to be able to score on anybody. I don't care who's guarding him. I think DeAndre Ayton can make it a little bit more difficult, and that's where things are going to come into play, especially with a possibly hobbled Giannis. I think that we're going to need to see a lot more from Giannis' teammates if DeAndre Ayton can make it a lot tougher on Giannis to get to the basket. And, I think he can do that. He has the ability to do that. But Giannis is Giannis, and he's going to do whatever he can to get to the basket. DeAndre Ayton is a big X factor for the Suns. Cameron Payne has also been very important for their season so far, or their playoffs, I guess, not the whole season. Because Chris Paul's been a little injured as well. He had that shoulder issue, and Cameron Payne has done a fantastic job of filling in for him when Chris Paul has needed rest. That hasn't been, the reason they're winning games, because Chris Paul is still playing fantastic. But Cameron Payne is providing offense. He is providing a ton of good decision-making and playmaking. Plus, defensive intensity is there. You can see that he's trying his best. I don't think he's all that, but he's definitely not a horrible defender. I think that his offense has been amazing. He scored like 27 the other day. And if he plays really well and Chris Paul somehow underperforms, Cameron Payne isn't a bad option to have behind him. And you might be calling me crazy, he's never really showed this in a long period of time. He's just done this in the most recent playoffs. Hell, he was in China a couple years ago. But I think that he has what it takes. He's proven, and he is on a hot streak. He's still got momentum on his side, and that's going to be a big reason why this team succeeds or doesn't succeed. Like I said, DeAndre Ayton is an X factor for me. I think that Cameron Payne also falls into that, he's a really important cog in the machine. Mikal Bridges is also a big, important piece for the Suns. They're going to need his shot creation and just overall catch-and-shoot ability. He's one of the best catch-and-shoot players in the NBA, but this playoffs he's been kind of underwhelming. I have not seen a lot of his shot creation, which I know he has the ability to do. I want to see that on full display, and it's going to take some effort from him to get to that point. But obviously, they've got Jay Crowder, who's an energy guy, and they've got Cameron Johnson, who's a big shooting guy, who's going to allow for good shooting and good defense, and that's all you really want with a guy like him. There's other guys like Dario Saric, who he'll be there. Torrey Craig will be there. If they can make their shots, that's just going to help the Phoenix Suns. But, like I said, DeAndre Ayton, Cameron Payne, Devin Booker, and CP3 are the biggest pieces, in my opinion, for the Suns' run. Let's move on to the Milwaukee Bucks. I've talked a lot about the Suns, but I do still think they're the underdog, and here's what I'm going to explain. I think that the Bucks have a completely perfect team built around their centerpiece, Giannis. And that has a lot to do with the way that Giannis plays, how they stretch the floor with everybody else. They've obviously got players like Drew Holiday, who has been fantastic. He had like 29, 9, and 8 in the final game against the Hawks. Chris Middleton, had an amazing quarter against the Hawks, but I thought he was kind of underwhelming in every other quarter up till that third quarter, and even in the fourth quarter, he did not play very well. He did not force himself into situations where he needed to be forced, and I know they won the game pretty handedly, But I think that they could have, given him more rest, made the game ended the game before it even begun if Chris Middleton really came out and shined like he should have. And other players like Bobby Portis playing great. He has been a fantastic role player. He has upped his stock. I am very happy to see Bobby Portis succeeding. Brook Lopez. However bad he was this season, and he really was not very good, he has picked it up in these playoffs. With Giannis out, he has been a great, he's been playing a Deandre Ayton type role, and that might be weird to say because they're in completely opposite situations. One is starting his career, one is ending his career, or in the last stretch of his career. But Brook Lopez is scoring very efficiently, playing good defense. I think it's going to be tough to play good defense on a player like Deandre Ayton, but I think it can be done. He's been great on the catch and shoot. He's been great on the pick and roll. Everything's been going his way. And Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, Giannis, they're all finding him and allowing him to succeed. PJ Tucker has been, he's their energy guy. He plays great defense when necessary. He makes the scrappy plays that you need to go far in the finals. And Bryn Forbes, Pat Connaughton, other guys like that provide good defense, great shooting. Not a ton of shot creation, not a ton of scoring ability from most of the Bucks bench, but that is picked up by Giannis and Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton, the big three as I would call them. So I want to see a lot from players like Bryn Forbes and Pat Connaughton because they are going to be the X factor for the Milwaukee Bucks. Obviously, Giannis needs to come back, and that is what their finals chances hinge on, is if Giannis can come back and play like he did before. Even 85% Giannis I think he's good enough to win them this NBA Finals, or at least make it competitive. But without Giannis, this is where things get tricky. If somehow Giannis injures himself further and can't play this NBA Finals, I still think that the Bucks have a shot if Chris Middleton can be consistent. He is one of the most inconsistent scorers. I don't think he turns it on when he needs to. I think that he waits for the last second almost to really start to assert himself into the offense. And I think that kind of hurts the Milwaukee Bucks. That is going to be somebody's going to have to go up to Chris Middleton and tell him, dude, we need you to be the guy that your contract tells us you are. And I'm not saying Chris Middleton is bad by any means. He deserves that contract. I just think he needs to be more assertive offensively, and I think he needs to be there more vocally. I just don't see Chris Middleton leading the charge ever. And I know that's Giannis' job, but when Giannis is injured, I want to see Chris Middleton step up a little bit more. And instead of just having one or two good quarters, how about we have an entire 4-quarter game played very well and consistently throughout. That is what is necessary for this Bucks team to make it competitive against this Phoenix Suns team. So, with that said, I think I've been rambling on for quite a few minutes, and those are my thoughts. I'm really excited. I'm really happy. At the end of the day, either Giannis Antetokounmpo, Chris Paul, Chris Middleton, DeAndre Ayton, Devin Booker, those guys could be getting a ring. There's a 50-50 shot right there. My prediction, I think this could go to 7 games. I also think it could go to 6 games if Giannis is out. I don't think that the Suns will absolutely blow the lid off of this thing and get it in 4, but it is possible for them to get it in 5. But my prediction is probably with Giannis for the Bucks, if he plays the entire 7 games, Bucks like 125 to 117 in Game 7. If, the Suns get matched up to a Giannis-less Bucks, I think it could go to 6 games, maybe more like 107 to like 98, something like that. So if I somehow hit the nail on the head, you can thank me later. Put your bets in now. Actually, don't do that. That's horrible advice. But thank you so much for watching. I'm really excited with this finals matchup. I couldn't be happier to watch it. So thank you for watching. I'll catch you next time. Peace.